brings a joy and a successful day for you. So before beginning with the class, let's see a thought for the day. And today's thought says, whatever you are, be good. Now why this thought? Just thought because I thought that maybe in today's present world, people are lacking moral values. Right? We are becoming self-centered, selfish, each one of us thinking only about oneself. And we are not bothered about another person. So, that's why I felt that this thought would really help us out in bringing out some moral values. So, if you are good towards nature, good towards human beings, good towards animals, creatures, that means in short, life or animate or inanimate, right? You should be good towards things. If you are good, you will have that feeling of goodness inside you. You will have that feeling of satisfaction that you were good today to someone, and that would make you really happy at the end of the day. So once again, whatever you are, try to be good. In today's class, we're going to start with our 5th chapter from our Vistas book, and the name of the chapter is Should Wizard Hit Mommy? Now what is a wizard? Yes, wizard is a man with magical powers. And why should this wizard hit mommy? That we'll see later in the lesson. Before that, let's have a look at the author. The name of the author is John Updike. Right? He was a critical analyst, a poet, a writer. Right? Now, what is the story about? The story is about a small little girl whose name is Jo. Right? And her father is in a habit of telling Jo a story daily. Right? And this girl, when she listens to the story, when she is listening to the stories, what she is in the habit of? She is in the habit of asking questions. These questions, many a time, deal with the moral values. Right? So, just let's make a hurry and read the chapter and find out those questions based on morals asked by the little girl, and what is the effect of it on the father. In the evenings and for Saturday naps like today's, Jack told his daughter Jo a story out of his head. This custom began when she was 2, was itself now nearly 2 years old. So, there is a father named Jack, and what is he in the habit of? He is in the habit of narrating a story to his daughter. And this started 2 years back, and today the daughter is herself 2 years old. And what is the speciality of the stories that he narrated? These stories were not read from any book or any newspaper or any magazines, but these were self-made stories. These were self-created stories, the imagination of the father himself. And his head felt empty. So imagine a person is narrating a story from continuously for 2 years. And now the situation has come that he has no more ideas, no more thoughts in his brain to develop a story. Each new story was a slight variation of a basic tale. A small creature, usually named Roger, Roger Fish, Roger Squirrel, Roger Chipmunk. So now begins story narration has been going on for long 2 years. The father has exhausted with the ideas. So now when he is telling the stories, there is just a little bit of variation, a very little bit of change in it. Now the name of the character is Roger, so it is Roger for all the stories. Maybe the father is talking about a fish, a squirrel, a chipmunk, or anything. The name of the character remains the same. Had some problem and went with it to the wise old owl. The owl told him to go to the wizard, and the wizard performed a magic spell that solved the problem. So this was the basic of the stories, of all the stories that he narrated. So now, what has he done? He has narrated a story, and in that story what would happen? He would say that all these Roger and squirrel, chipmunk or fish, they had a problem and they would go to an old owl who was considered to be very old and was very wise. So they would go to this old owl for suggestions, for advice or solution to their problems. And then this magical owl would spell some words, magical words, and then the problem would be solved. Demanding in payment a number of pennies greater than the number that Roger creature had. And this old owl would not solve the problems out of courtesy, out of kindness. No. He would charge for it. He would take money for it. And this amount, this charge would go sometimes beyond the money that would be there with the creatures, the small little creatures who are going for help to him. But in the same breath, directing the animal to a place where the extra pennies could be found. So, the story is going in this way, but at the same way, at the same time, what would happen? The creatures would be told where they can find some extra money which need to be given to the owl. Then Roger was so happy. He played many games with other creatures and went home to his mother just in time to hear the train whistle that brought his daddy home from Boston. So apart from this, when the problem was solved, what would happen? This Roger, he would go quickly, play for some time, and then at proper time he would reach home because he wanted to hear the whistle of the train, in which his daddy, who might have gone out for some job or duty, he would be coming back. So he liked to listen to the whistle of that train. Jack described their supper and the story was over. And then at the end, the father would tell how and what they had in the dinner. Supper is dinner, and then that's how the story would finish. That now after dinner they all went to sleep. And that would be the end of the story. Working his way through his scheme was especially fatiguing on Saturday because Joe never fell asleep in naps anymore, and knowing this made the ride seem futile. So now what is happening? This is a general thing. Even you might be seeing in our day-to-day life also. Like rest of the weekdays, we sleep at a particular time given by the parents. But especially on the weekend nights, especially on Saturday night, what do? We are awake for a little late, a little longer. We don't sleep till late. We are maybe busy watching movie, reading news, read paper or any book, or playing some game of your choice. So that is what was the case with this girl also, right? On Saturday she would not sleep so early, and this would be difficult for the father because maybe that day he had to give more than one story to the girl, because she would not take naps like other days. The little girl, not so little anymore, the buns her feet made under the covers were halfway down the bed. Their big double to bed that they let her be in for naps and when she was sick. So this girl, now she is no more a little girl, they say, she is grown up. And then what would she do? She would keep bumping her legs on the bed. Why? Demanding for maybe new stories or something else. This was the bed where she would sleep when she would be sick, when she would be ill. Had at last arranged herself, and from the way her fat face, deep in the pillow, shone in the sunlight, sifting through the drawn shades. So now what would happen? Then slowly, maybe when she is now able to sleep, she would arrange herself and she would go to sleep. In the morning what would happen? The sunlight would enter into the room and fall on her face through the curtains that were on the window, that were covering the window. It did not seem fantastic that some magic would occur and she would take her nap like an infant of 2. And then she did not wake up. With this light falling on her face, she would not wake up. And there was no magic that could make her wake up because of the light. This may happen, you might have seen, you are fast asleep, but if somebody switches on the light in the room, right, if the light is turned on, your sleep is disturbed, you may get up also. But this time, then the child would behave like a small girl and she would be deep in her sleep. Her brother Bobby was 2 and already asleep with his bottle. Jack asked, "Who shall the story be about today?" So now the daughter is grown up and the brother is of the 2 years old, and then he is asking, now what story are we going to listen today? What story the father is going to tell today? Roger. Joe squeezed her eyes shut and smiled to be thinking she was thinking. The father would tell the stories and the name of the characters in the story would always be Roger. So she would ask who is the character of the story or the main hero of the story, and then she would herself close her eyes, wink her eyes, smile and then pretend that she is thinking and saying Roger. So what she would say, one day her eyes opened, her mother's blue. Skunk, she said firmly. And then one day maybe the mother had an animal, a creature, a skunk. Skunk is an animal who has got white and black striped fur, right? The body has stripes, black and white stripes, just like the zebra. Okay. And then this animal, if somebody attacks him, if he feels that somebody will attack him, he throws out a foul smelling liquid, right, from the anal part of his body, so which is very bad to smell. Now then she says that a new animal, they must talk about skunks at nursery school. Having a fresh hero momentarily stirred Jack to creative enthusiasm. So then the father was given an idea that now no more Roger stories. Let's have a new character in our story, and that new character would be a new animal who is going to be skunk. Now when the father got this idea, his creativity also started working. He also became enthusiastic. Maybe now because there is a change of character, so he might get new ideas quickly. Alright, he said, once upon a time in a deep dark woods, there was a tiny little creature by the name of Roger Skunk, and he smelled very bad. So, this is what? Again, the character has changed, but the name of the character still remains Roger. And he says there was a tiny creature, skunk, and he really smelled very bad. Yes, Joe said, he smelled so bad that none of the other little woodland creatures would play with him. Joe looked at him solemnly. She hadn't foreseen this. Whenever he would go out to play, Jack continued with zest. So that's what the father again pays stress on this sentence, that he creatures, none of the other animals in the forest like to play with him. And remembering certain humiliations of his own childhood, all of the other tiny animals would cry, "Oh, here comes Roger Stinky Skunk." And they would run away, and Roger Skunk would stand there all alone. So, while narrating a story, the father sometimes used to remember maybe things or incidents in his own childhood. Right? And then his voice would change. This may give us a hint that maybe father had some bad experiences in his childhood. We'll see it later in the later part of the lesson. So, then what happens? This skunk, he said, all the other animals, when he would go, they would just shout, tease him, saying, "Roger Stinky Skunk," and they would all run away. And this poor little skunk, he would be standing all alone. There, nobody to play with him. And all his eyes would be in tears, it would all be in tears, and two little round tears would fall from his eyes. The corners of Joe's mouth dropped down, and her lower lip bent forward as he traced with a forefinger along the side of her nose the course of one of Roger's son's tears. So listening to this girl was very excited because there was a new character today in the story. So she might be all in smiles. But as soon as she heard the pathetic condition of the skunk, her smile it dropped. Right? She became sad. And the father, making gestures, touching her nose, her eyes, showing that the tears would fall, would try to change her mood. "Won't he see the owl?" she asked in a high and faintly roughened voice. So because all the stories of father, in all his stories, what would happen? There would be a creature who would be troubled, who had a problem, and they would go to the old owl for the solution. So now she's learned them all by heart, and that's the reason why she's asking the father. So won't the skunk go to the owl for a suggestion or advice? Sitting on the bedside beside her, Jake felt the cover stuck as her legs switched tensely. So both are inside in the bed, they are sitting comfortably, cozily, and then he could feel that Jake could not move his legs. He was pleased with this moment. He was telling her something true, something she must know, and had no wish to hurry. So every story the father wanted to finish up so that the child may sleep. But since today is Saturday night and he knows that the child is not going to sleep so soon, so he is also not in a hurry to finish the story, right? And he is telling her something true. As I have told them, there may be some incident that might have happened in father's childhood, so the father is not in a hurry to finish up with the thing. But downstairs a chair scrapped, and he realized he must get down to help Claire paint the living room woodwork. So Claire is his wife. So he could hear the sound made by the chair downstairs, and then he realized that the wife downstairs is busy painting. So he thought that he should be going there and helping his wife in completing the work. Well, he walked along very sadly and came to a very big tree. And in the tip top of the tree was an enormous wise old owl. Good. So the father again comes back to that point and he says, yes, the skunk was very sad, very upset, and he started walking. And as he walked silently, tiptoed silently without making any sound, so he reached to a big tree where the old owl was sitting. And good, Joe is happy because that at least the owl character again comes into the story. Mr. Owl, Roger Skunk said, all the other little animals run away from me because I smell so bad. Very, very bad. What can I do? Roger skunk said, and he cried very hard. So Roger comes to the owl and he shares his problem with him. He says that all the animals, they run away from me. They say that I smell very bad. And then the owl also agrees to it. He says, yes, you do smell very bad. And then the skunk asks, what should I do? And he starts crying again. The wizard, the wizard. Joe shouted and sat right up, and a little golden book spilled from the bed. So, Joe was so excited that she started shouting, wizard, wizard. As I have told you, who's a wizard? Wizard is a man with magical powers. And when she was doing so, a book with golden cover, it fell down. Now, Joe, Daddy is telling the story. Do you want to tell Daddy the story? No, you, me. So, Daddy, because Joe is always interrupting in between. So, Daddy is a little bit annoyed, angry, and he says, now tell me who's telling the story. Daddy is telling a story, or you want to tell a story to Daddy? What is it? And then the girl is a little bit quiet and she says, no, you, me. She only mutters the word. Then lie down and be sleepy. Her head relapsed onto the pillow and she said, out of your head. Well, the owl thought and thought. So, as Daddy told her to lie down in the bed and she should try to sleep. So, she lies down on the pillow and she said, out of your head. Now, you can start and continue with your story. So, the father says, well, the owl thought and thought. The owl is thinking, what next? Or at last he said, why don't you go see the wizard? And then the owl gives an advice, a solution, that skunk should go and meet wizard. Daddy, what? And again she interrupts. Are magic spells real? Now this is her very first question that she's put related to the stories. That do you really feel that magic is there, spells are there? This was a new phase, just this last month, a reality phase. And this was a new phase this year. It started just last month. When he told her spiders eat bugs, she turned to her mother and asked, do they really? So now the girl is growing up. So she is able to think, she is able to react. When a little baby, we really are not able to give a reason. We don't need to, because that small little baby doesn't have that much of thinking power. But as the child grows, he is developing his thinking power also, and then he starts questioning for everything what you tell him. Right? So I guess we stop here for today's class. In our next class, we will be seeing what happened ahead in the story. Until then, keep learning, keep experiencing, stay safe.